Hey folks, this is Rabble Rousing Rich Bergeron.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's the Tornado, Tony Pennicott.
Tom Pageant with the polished crystal ball.
All right. Well, we got a big one that just broke yesterday. There's a multi-million-dollar lawsuit that has been filed by Terence Crawford against Bob Arum. Have you guys heard anything?
Yeah.
Unreal.
Yeah, I heard about it.
So, I mean, it's not just that there's a lawsuit. It's the contents of the lawsuit and the allegations that make this such a big story. And on top of this drama and, basically just unbelievable saga that this is, the contract has run out between Crawford and Bob Arum. And who steps in and is managing Terence Crawford now? It's none other than Daniel Kinahan, who is a notorious crime lord, allegedly. It does not get any stranger than fiction than this is. The truth is always stranger than fiction. Fiction, they say, but this is a wild one.
What is this? What is this guy Kinman? What is it?
Daniel Kinahan. He has somehow squeezed his way into the boxing world, but he's also a known crime lord. When the United States is like actively trying to capture him and bring him to justice. I mean, I've mentioned a couple stories about him on the show over the years. The last big thing was there was a boxing match that was shot up somewhere, I believe, in Ireland. They thought he was connected to.
Oh, okay, so he's Irish. Okay.
Yes, and he somehow has gotten the ear of a few big-time boxers, and obviously Terence Crawford is one of them. It's going to be a big story if it isn't already. I mean, I think it is, but basically I'm going to read directly from the article because, I mean, BoxingScene.com has a really great article on it that I got in my Google alerts, and I read it earlier, and I mean, it's not only breach of contract stuff and, failure to provide good services, basically, but it's also claims a lot of racial bias and specifically bad conduct at the end of the arrangement, where not only was Bob Arum giving up on the guy because he was like a lame duck fighter to him, because he wasn't, I mean, he felt like, oh, why bother promote him? His contract is running out. But he also disparaged him, according to the lawsuit, constantly, and downplayed his pay-per-view sales and all that, like he was trying to push Terence into a situation where nobody was going to give him a better offer to re-sign with him. I don't know, and Bob Arum has tried to sell Top Rank, but obviously wasn't successful at whatever price he was asking for. So I don't think he's really taken the business as seriously as a lot of the other promoters in the same circles. And some of the quotes, I mean, you probably agree with the lawsuit when you get some of these quotes here. I'm going to get to. These are Bob Arum quotes according to the Crawford lawyer. Let me get to it. So basically, I mean, it turned out there was supposed to be two fights a year on the contract, and there was 1 year where there was only one, and then there was also a promise of setting up a Spence fight. And the crazy thing is, the promise was supposedly made the day after Spence got into his car accident, which put everything up in the air about, whether he was even going to come back to boxing. So these guys had to have known that that fight was not going to happen And they kind of still squeezed Crawford into signing a fight agreement with the promise that he would get a matchup with Spence after the fact. So
I can kind of see both sides of that, because who knows how quick Spence was going to recover. I know he was seriously injured, but quite a physical specimen in his back. So I could see making that argument the other way.
Right.
But and really trying to guarantee there's going to be a fight, though, even if they're both healthy, Arum knows better than that, if that was the contract.
So one of the worst quotes is Arum said that he could, quote, build a house in Beverly Hills on the money I've lost on him in the last 3 fights.
Wow.
That's probably true.
Brutal.
Oh, wow.
He's also said Crawford's never done anything on pay-per-view. He said, I won't lose any more money on Terence Crawford. And these are all, I believe, separate occasions. It doesn't really give you context in the article, but they say it's all Bob Arum quotes. Arum also said, if he doesn't, then who the fuck needs him? He may be the greatest fighter in the world, but hey, I ain't going bankrupt promoting him. He also said, the question is, do we want to keep him? And that's where I could build a house in Beverly Hills on the money I've lost. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, a lawsuit's based on libel, and I don't think any of those statements were libel. I think that was more as his opinion, but I think Arum makes a good point on that, too. Well, this will be interesting to see how this plays out. I would assume Arum would just do some kind of settlement, but you never know. He's pretty hard-headed.
Yeah, well, he wants over $10 million, I believe. And then there's like a separate $900,000 claim about the promise for the Spence fight. But there's some racial stuff there too, like I said, which is pretty crazy. But then there's allegations that apparently Crawford wanted more to fight in front of no people during the pandemic, so that made it difficult to negotiate payments and fight opportunities. And he wanted to be paid up front, which is, I think, unheard of. I don't know enough about the business itself to know if you can get paid up front.
And now as far as the racial stuff, is he saying that there's any way of proving that, or is that just hearsay?
Trying to find it.
I mean, based on what you've seen. Yeah, because it's easy for someone to say something like that. But, you know, Bob Arum may be a rat, but I think he's an equal opportunity vulture. I really don't, I never had that. I mean, there's enough reasons to despise Bob Arum, and I don't think you need to throw that into it.
So I know that Bob Arum did say all the stuff about pay-per-view, but he failed to also mention that, you know, the ESPN Plus network was launched on a Crawford fight, basically, according to the Camp Crawford lawsuit, basically. And also, you know, Manny Pacquiao being under the same management and that fight never materializing. He's got a beef with that. So, you know, there's just a lot of issues here. But I'm trying to find the quotes where he talks about the racial issues here. Just keeps bouncing around.
That, I think, would sound a little more valid. Yeah, 'cause that's a good point. Because he did have Pac-Man.
So this is a quote
from... Of course,
This is a quote from Terence himself. He said, in truth, Top Rank, a company with 0 black executives and only 2 or 3 black employees, refuses to admit that it simply does not care about, support, or know how to promote black fighters. Or maybe this is the lawsuit it's quoting. It says, recently, while most businesses have become sensitive to issues of race and social justice, Top Rank has not. At a time when most businesses took steps to honor Black Lives Matter in the wake of Black Lives in the wake of the George Floyd murder, Top Rank actually refused to place the Black Lives Matter logo on the mats of its boxing ring. Instead of standing behind a black fighter such as Crawford, it publicly criticized him. and it says, all of the numerous allegations of racism levied against Crawford and by Top Rank as a whole appear in the complaint's introduction. None are included in any of the 6 separate causes of action filed against the promotional outfit. So that sounds like they're just using it for context. They're not allegations that are carrying any civil claim weight. It's just to pose the character of Top Rank and Bob Arum as racist, I guess, to impress the media more than the judge. But I don't know. That's kind of that kind of makes it a little bit more controversial in media circles. But is it going to help his case? I don't know. Especially like you say, if they don't have evidence.
And Rick, you're right. It does make it more controversial. But that term is getting to be so, and you don't want to say watered down because it's still something that can be very serious. But that's a good crutch for anybody that has no argument. That's a crutch.
Right. Yeah. Very, very good point. Very good point.
Okay, here's the thing. I don't use Twitter very much, but what I'll do every year is if I go down to Florida, buy my nephew a Hulk Hogan shirt, I'll tweet it to Hulk Hogan, and I'll try to get Hulk to retweet it, and then I'll put it in kid's calendar as a screenshot of Hulk Hogan retweeting him. What I did this year was I got, and I'll send it to you, Tom, because I think you'll like it. It was half of the wrestling photos and half of it was boxing photos, and I bookended it with a Hulk Hogan retweeting a picture and Vinny Pazienza retweeting a picture. And so, yeah, pretty cool. So I had this Hulk Hogan retweet, and it's the little boy wearing a red Hogan shirt and carrying like a little figure, like a plush figure to wrestle with, and so people are like, oh man, that's pretty cool. Oh, I had one of those Hogan plush kid, and people were just talking about, hey, that's a really cool picture, whatever. Then one guy, oh, I see your father, which I guess they assume, even though I said, hey, Hulk, nephew, my nephew, not my son, my nephew, get a retweet. I see your father is bringing you up to rape, because 10 years ago when he was drunk, Hulk Hogan said a N-word that he shouldn't have said. It happens. We've all done dumb shit.
Well, that's the thing. Like Tom said about this complaint, it doesn't seem there's any evidence of actual racial slurs or anything like that here. It's
and the thing is, okay, Bob Arum has been doing this for, he's the guy that would promote Cain versus Abel if he could. And you build up a business, and the guys you promote are in a way, your business partners. You consider them employees because you're the one that's putting these shows together. But you can consider them business partners. You consider them employees. But putting together a business, you want people that are gonna, help you make money. If you're a business owner, you want people that are going to help you basically make sales, make product, make money. And okay, so you are getting business all different, races, nationalities, and now genders. And, now I don't know who works for your company, but if, you're behind the scenes stuff, but when you're a lawyer, like Bob Arum, went to law school, I think went to Harvard Law School, and a lot of times what you're going to do is you're going to basically hire people that you have for, your legal stuff. You're going to hire your fellow lawyers. You're going to hire your fellow, business analytical people. And, sometimes it comes down to who you know. Hey, I have some contacts from my time at Harvard. I've had some contacts from this person that I've done business with. I like them. I want you to, to work with me. It doesn't have to always be like, well, I hired this person because he's Jewish like me, or he's Italian like me, or he's, Irish like me, whatever. I hire this guy because I know him, and he gets the stuff done. What's the problem? Well, you don't have enough blacks, working for you. Well, did I have anybody that that I had any close contact with. That, you know, I'm not just pulling somebody out of the air and saying, okay, I'm going to hire you. You know, I think that's worse because then it's like a token hire, and I hate that.
Yeah. So this is another allegation that they put in the lawsuit. It's like, you know, lawsuit logic here. When you're trying to go after large sums of money, you make shit like this up to put in it. They say, on information and belief, Top Rank has lost millions promoting its most popular and well-known white fighters, yet Arum has not openly criticized them. The complaint also points to Arum's actively promoting in South Africa during the height of apartheid, dismissing the brutal and bloody regime as mere politics and saying he did not care about it as long as he could make money. Okay, where's the exact quote on that? And second of all, I mean, boxing during apartheid did not go away. In South Africa, I mean, it was a bigger issue than anybody really understand, and it lasted a long time before they figured it out. But, I mean, who were boxing promoters to get in the way of that? I mean, it really was a government political thing. And, I mean, boxing has been plagued by all kinds of scandals. And I mean, if you read the book The Power of One, you get a real better understanding of what apartheid was like. But it was also, you know, it was like a white racism too. Certain people that were in different communities were looked down upon, even though they were white. You know, wasn't just a black versus white thing. And I mean, there was wars involved. The Boer War there was a big thing. It's just a very complicated issue. It's like almost like the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. So people that talk about it like that and just make those generalizations really don't know what the hell they're talking about. Unless you give me an exact quote that Bob came out there and said he didn't give a shit about apartheid as long as he could make money. I mean, that sounds like a very big generalization. That he's saying he did not care about it as long as he could make money. Who did he say that to? Like, give me the evidence. So, yeah, I don't necessarily support that part of the argument, but... And then how are you going to prove that he has never criticized his white fighters? And then also, have they been in the same situation? Have his white fighters that are so popular and lost him money, have they left their contracts? You know? Probably not if they're losing him money and they're making money. You know, so if he's leaving his contract and, you know, there's bad blood, it's a little bit different scenario. You're going to expect the promoter to kind of downplay the guy a little bit, you know? But anyway, that's a big story. There's also a big lawsuit in the wrestling world. And it's kind of like Vince McMahon going overboard here with the Major League Wrestling promotion. They're filing an antitrust suit claiming all kinds of interference, and particularly with their network partnerships with Fox. And they've also supposedly been bullying Vice TV over content that Major League Wrestling has on there. But the WWE executive that's been talked about in the middle of the suit said basically that they can't control McMahon, so there's nothing they can do. But yeah,
You can't promote the guy that signs the paycheck.
and they argue that WWE has been wrongfully depriving its competitors of critical opportunities for many years, but its latest conduct has been even more unconscionable. I think we speak for the rest of the professional wrestling world when we say this anti-competitive behavior has to stop. Of course, WWE says, nope, nothing to see here. No offense.
No.
So we'll see how that develops.
And see, as a boy, when McMahon was starting his takeover. So when I was, a little kid, and I always think about it. It's funny how life works. When I was a little kid, I watched sometimes like the Saturday evening matches on whatever. Backlund was the champion, and you'd have like, your guy, the Giant Sergeant Slaughter, and Superstar Billy Graham and the Iron Sheik and all them. And then right when we moved to our new neighborhood, my new house, we had just cable, which had channels on it, which one of them was a Philadelphia premium channel, which carried a lot of baseball games and hockey and basketball games, and also the monthly wrestling matches from the Philadelphia Spectrum. And right when I was moving there, when Hulk Hogan was winning his first title and becoming the big face of the industry. So that really brought me into it. But reading the books on this from back when this was happening in the early to mid 80s, it was you had these other that were basically using these guys as carnies. And, they'd bring them into a territory and you'd wrestle. And you get your small little payouts. But, these guys were basically hand to mouth. It wasn't we're going to make a lot of money unless you were like an Andre the Giant type of guy. And then McMahon took over, and promoters hated him because he's stealing our talent. And then another guy piped in and said, you know what? No, he's not. If you were willing to pay them what he's willing to pay them, then maybe they wouldn't leave you. But he's giving them more money and national exposure. He's revolutionizing the industry where you guys are so stuck in the past because you're a regional monopoly or wants a national monopoly.
Right.
That's why he won. He was willing to take that gamble. If he didn't make it, he's pushing pencils. He's selling pencils on a street corner. But he was willing to take that gamble, and he had enough of a vision. And I have an idea. I want to make it work, and I need someone to be the face of it. He sees Rocky 3, and it's like, that's the guy. You know what I said. And I'm gonna give you guys a scenario here, and I'm gonna mix Hollywood and entertainment, and I'm gonna go to Tom because Tom's are a little older than us, and he's seen a lot more fights than we do. Now we can say right now, maybe the biggest star in entertainment, Hollywood, athletics, and all that. I'm going to say the biggest star in entertainment is Dwayne Johnson. Who have to thank for his success?
WWE.
Yeah. And it goes way down the line. Way down the line.
Yep.
Yeah, goes back to the mid-'90s when he was probably just getting started with McMahon.
No, it goes back even further.
Yeah, that you got me on that one. Wow.
Okay, and I'm gonna give you a name, and then how I came up with this hypothesis. You ready?
Oh, let's do it.
The Bayonne Bleeder.
Okay.
Chuck Wepner.
Because now, because I know that Chuck took a dip into wrestling at the end when his boxing days were done.
Yeah, you're right. He did an exhibition with Andre the Giant, but that's not.
Oh, okay.
Are you ready to hear my hypothesis?
Let's hear it.
Rocky's based on, right?
Bingo. Chuck Wepner, Muhammad Ali, no white underdog, puts up a pretty good account of himself. Scores a controversial, not really knocked down.
Left foot for step on the foot. I love that.
Left foot knockdown. So Chuck Wepner fights Muhammad Ali, Snow White underdog, but he puts a good account of himself. A luck, nearly broke, wannabe actor sees the fight and loves it. Sylvester Stallone. Sylvester Stallone turns around and goes, "What? This has got to be a movie, and I'm going to write it and I'm going to play it." And he makes Rocky. Rocky becomes a huge success, which leads to Rocky 2. to Rocky 3. Rocky 3, we need a larger-than-life professional wrestler to get in there and do a boxer versus wrestler scene. And guy Hulk Hogan would be perfect for that. We get Hulk Hogan, who was bouncing around the territories. He was with the New York WWF, and then he was in Japan, Minnesota, and he was, down in Florida and all over. But he gets that big worldwide recognition in Rocky 3. Vince McMahon Jr., because he'd already worked for Vince McMahon Sr. and burned his bridge. Mm-hmm. Vince McMahon Jr. sees him and says, you know what? You need to be the face of my takeover. Boom. 10 years later, a young Dwayne Johnson is getting in, and, the business is exploding, which the business had been on the decline until basically Hulk Hogan kind of revolutionized it again. Him on the WCW side at the time, and Stone Cold Steve also on the WWF side at the time. They both brought the business back to the forefront just when Dwayne Johnson was getting into it. Figure, if Hulk Hogan hadn't been the national attraction he was because of Rocky 3, because of Rocky 2, because of Chuck Wepner, where would Dwayne Johnson be today?
Yeah. Wow. That is like Ring Magazine. So, who's connected to a heavyweight? I love those.
Yeah, I know. Me too.
That's pretty good, buddy.
Thank you.
The Rain Man of wrestling too.
Yeah.
No, but it's an interesting story. You got all these upstart promotions that sue each other, and they can't do it as well as the WWE, so they're going to cry foul and antitrust. But I got more faith in the antitrust suit against the UFC than I do against the WWE, especially with the money that they have, the deep pockets. They bought frickin' Tap Out, for Christ's sake, and made it a wrestling thing when it was MMA for decades. I just still cannot believe that. But anyway, we got some events coming up. We got one championship event as well as a UFC fight for once. I lost all my money on football this weekend. Not all my money, but all my FanDuel money that was in the bank there. But I'd had a good week the week before, so it was all free money basically to me. And flushed it all down the toilet on football, so now I'm going back to MMA for the weekend. We'll see how I do. But we also had a little bit of boxing last week. A whole hell of a lot of big names. But Elvis won the fight of the week. Elvis Figueroa.
Sitting at my desk dressed as Elvis.
Elvis Figueroa got a win over Ryan Adams on Friday. And that's really the biggest name, surprisingly enough. It was Elvis. But we have some couple fights this weekend. Joe Smith Jr., I believe, is fighting, right? Let me see.
Yes.
And he's a fellow tree guy. So, I don't know if he does firewood with his trees, but this is a busy season if he does firewood, too. I know that. Been living it. But anyway, so that's Saturday. We're going to get to that in a minute. But we got the big UFC card coming back for the first time since last year. UFC on ESPN 32, they're calling it. Okay. Main event is featherweights. Calvin Kattar versus Giga Chikadze. Calvin is actually a New England fighter. Comes from the Lawrence, Massachusetts area. And it's 22-5. Giga Chikadze is just on fire lately. He's 14-2. Very dynamic, streaky fighter. He's kind of like watching a squirrel when they have that fast twitch reaction to stuff, and like a cat comes after him and they're gone. Giga can do that, but he can also strike you like that and just boom, hit you and you're gone. Switches stances. He just does all kinds of crazy stuff. So Calvin's going to have every trick in the book to keep up with Giga Chikadze. I love Calvin. I've dealt with him personally. I've emailed him before he really got famous. We used to feature all their press releases from promotions he was involved in. But I gotta say, I'm not having much faith in him on this one. I'd love to be the hometown rooter. I'll be rooting for him, but I'm gonna have to say, professional hat on, Giga Chikadze is probably gonna knock him out. Which, Holloway gave everything he could to try to, but the guy is very hard to stop. But Giga Chikadze has that kind of power.
Yeah, Chikadze seems like he's on another level. But I'm with you on that. Both on my heart's ad that what I think's going to happen. But Calvin, I watched an interview and he just says, "Hey, to be the best, I love his attitude."
Yeah.
So we'll see.
And talk about a Rocky story. If he wins this fight, it's going to be amazing. He's really come from a small circuit environment and just came up out of nowhere and is against all odds, facing this guy after getting pretty beat up by one of the top guys and, still getting thrown right to the wolves. And if he accomplishes his mission here, it's going to be the ultimate story of redemption and also those adjustments that you need to make after a loss. And, that's just a great story if he pulls it off. So, like I said, I'm pulling for him, but if I got to put money on this fight, it's going on Chikadze. I'm sorry to say it. I hope he's not listening to this episode anytime soon. But that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Jake Collier and Chase Sherman in the co-main event there, and those guys are heavyweights. Chase, I don't know. He's great sometimes, and he kind of is just average other times. So, Jake versus Chase. I don't know. Jake Collier I have not seen much of, so I don't know what to tell you about him, but it's very even on paper. Looks like a good matchup. I have not done the common opponent math yet, but, we'll figure that out for FanDuel. Then we got the flyweights. 2 flyweight fights in a row. The first one is male Brandon Royval, 12-6, fighting Rogerio Boncharin, who is 17-3. These guys I don't know a hell of a lot about either. But Caitlin Chukagian, 16-4 in the 7th fight of the night, fighting Jennifer Maia, who is 19-7-1 at flyweight. So you get a little bit of experience, journeywoman, against a girl that's a real up-and-comer. Caitlin is putting it all together. She's got very long reach, and she's getting a little bit sharper with her striking as she gets on in fights. And Jennifer Maia obviously has a lot of fights, but about half as many losses as she has wins. So on paper it looks like Caitlin's going to run away with it, but it's like any given Sunday with female fights. Shit happens all the time that you don't expect. So, but also, like I always say, FanDuel, if you're doing lineups on MMA fights, you almost always have to have one of the female fights on the card. It's just inevitable. You just have to pick the right one. Dakota Bush on the card at lightweight. He is 8-3, fighting Vyacheslav Borshev, who is 5-1. I definitely don't know anything about either of those guys, unfortunately. I'm going to look into them. But Bill Algeo in the 5th fight, he is 14-6 at featherweight, fighting Joe Anderson Say De Brito, who is 12-2 with 1 draw. And we got middleweights Jamie Pickett, 12-6, fighting Joseph Holmes, who is 7-1. Court McGee, old school Ultimate Fighter guy on the card. He is like one of the other journeymen on the undercard here. He is 20-10, fighting 9-3 Ramez Brahimaj, who is 9-3. I wonder if his friends call him Bra. B-R-A-H. It's like the Hawaiian bra. But second fight of the night, Brian Kelleher, 23-12, fighting Kevin Kroom, who is 21-13. Talking about even matchup there at featherweight. That's going to be a wild one. T.J. Brown, 15-8 at lightweight, fighting Charles Rosa, who is 14-6 in the first matchup. And of course, these cards are subject to change too. You're probably always going to have one or two fights drop off for some reason or another. So my other advice for a FanDuel lineup people is always check about an hour before the fights are supposed to start to see who's out, if anybody has been taken out of the lineup at the last second. Sometimes it happens. Anyway, we've got a short little fight card in Singapore for January 14th event for one championship. The main event there is a title fight for the flyweight championship. Jingnan Jiang. Probably not doing that right, but sounds like it. 16-2 is her record at flyweight. She's fighting Ayaka Miura, who is 11-3. And that was a great matchup in the co-main event. James Nakashima, 12-2, fighting Sagid Gakmeev, who is 19-2. And third fight of the night is Senzo Ikeda, 11-5-1, fighting Elipitua Sirigar, who's 4-1. Tiffany Teo, 9-2, fighting Meng Bo, who's 18-5 in a flyweight contest in the second fight of the night. And then we got 11-1-1 Shuya Kamakubo at featherweight, fighting Troy Worthen, who is 7-2. Yeah, I haven't really watched a lot of the one championship. I thought they had more of a U.S. TV deal than they actually do. I think a lot of it's the overseas stuff doesn't get over here. But anyway, boxing. We got to talk about boxing. So I've talked about it on the show already, the Pay the Fighters situation. So I'm starting paythefighters.com, and I haven't actually coordinated it with this first move with John Scully, but basically I donated my Mike Tyson signed boxing glove to John Scully. So if you get enough people to the link, which I'm working on,
Did you put it on Facebook today?
Yeah, I put it on. He put it on Facebook today. He just got it yesterday, and it has certificate of authenticity.
I saw that. Doing together.
Yeah, and everything is legit. I got the video and everything to back it up. I met Tyson out in Vegas, at a signing event. Got him to sign the glove, and you guys have heard the story. But anyway, I paid like $300 for it. So anything over that, it'd be a win for me to sell it personally. But the more I thought about it, it's like, John Scully's doing this. I want to involve John Scully and paythefighters.com with at least an interview, to highlight his story about what he does. And then also to kind of bring him on board if it gets bigger. Because he'd be a great ambassador for something like that, and especially if we do it right. So basically, I wanted to do a good thing more than anything. That's what motivated me. So Wilfred Benitez, unfortunately, is ailing right now. He's not doing so great, and John has been trying to send him money as much as possible to help him with the situation. So he decided Wilfred's going to get the money. And the crazy thing is, 6 degrees of separation in the boxing community. Wilfred Benitez is the guy who gave the first knockout loss to my former trainer, briefly, Tony Petronelli, up in Brockton. Tony was on quite the win streak at that time. He had only had one other loss in his whole career, back early in his career. And that was one of the biggest fights of his life. And Wilfred just walked over him. So that was a tough one. But Tony had a fantastic record. I mean, still overcame that and did pretty well for himself. But Wilfred will always be a legend. I mean, he's got quite the resume, and it's sad to see that he wasn't able to kind of reap the rewards of that enough to have an empire at this point in his life that he's still working off of, or living off of. And it's just one of those sad examples of how the sport itself and the people that have made all the money have failed the people that have made the money for them. You know, that's one of the main goals of even starting a site like that. You know, paythefighters.com, and a lot of the work that I've done to kind of shoot down other people that have come into the space and acted like they were going to do something and just shit their pants and did nothing, you know, and faked fighters out and made them believe that there was going to be unions, and you know, like especially the culinary union, those bastards. I mean, they basically pinched all my stuff off my website, reformatted it, and, you know, made it look like it was their own content with some of the stuff they were going after the Fertitas with, and then they made it look like they were all concerned about the UFC and fighter treatment, but they weren't going to step up and do a union, and they were the perfect people to do it. If they really were concerned about the issue, they had a union already. One of the biggest unions in the country. And that one pissed me off more than anything, because, you know, you guys are just doing lip service at this point. And it's obviously all about union dues. It's not really about the cause. So, yeah. So the glove is available on Facebook. If you go to John Scully's, one of his pages, it's on, and both of his pages, it's on there, his fan page and his personal page. So check it out, bid on it. I believe it's at $350 as we speak on the show, but, you know, by the time I get this up on the site, it might be a little bit more than that. Hopefully it runs for a couple days. Yeah, it's a good score because it's very unique. I mean, without telling the whole story, basically, I bought a set of Muhammad Ali Signature Series gloves. And Muhammad Ali's signature is in white on the glove. And then Mike Tyson signed it in the other direction with a really fat Sharpie that I brought for him to sign it with, because I didn't want them to use some dinky little marker that they give you at the event. And I believe I let Tyson keep it, because I remember him playing with the cat after I walked away. But, you know, I didn't need it anymore anyway. That's all I bought it for. So he signed it, nice big print, and it's on a red glove, so it would have probably been harder to see if it hadn't been for that big Sharpie. So that was a bonus. And then it's also a full-size glove, and at these events, when Tyson does them, he really doesn't control much of it. I'm thinking he's probably just getting a paycheck out of it. You know, a certain agreed price for every single autograph he signs. I don't know. But he's like trying to move people through, you know, so it's obvious that, you know, it's about numbers for him. But I got to, you know, speak to him for a minute about, you know, the whole reason why I chose the Ali glove. And I said, you know, I saw this episode of Arsenio Hall and Ali was on it, and he said that you could beat him. And so this was 2011, and Tyson was just like not about fighting at all. He's done with it. Even though he's signing gloves at a boxing event, you know, he's just like, he doesn't even want to talk about it anymore at that point. So he was just like, I can't beat anybody. And I asked him to come on this show, and that was one of the funniest parts of the whole thing, because like I gave my card to the guy that's standing there, and I go, maybe you could come on my radio show sometime. And he's like, I don't know, man. It ain't happening. I'm not famous enough, so that was funny. But yeah, it was a good time, and it's a great product. I mean, it's a good glove, and you usually when you do any kind of boxing signing event, you might get you know, like a little tiny glove, but you're not going to get like a full-size glove that you could actually wear if you wanted to. I wouldn't recommend it on a signed Tyson glove, but. So that's out there, and I really hope it generates a lot of income and it helps out Wilfred, you know, because the way I see it, even though he beat my old coach, it's probably the reason why my coach had so much great knowledge about the sport of boxing, because he had to have fights like that, and he had to learn from losses like that. And I don't believe he ever got knocked out again. Maybe once, at the very end of his career, but, you know, in the height of his career, he was pretty damn good. He only had 4 losses, Tony. But, you know, Wilfred was just legendary. Great, great, great fighter. So, no shame there. No cheap date, right, Tom?
Yes, sir.
So we'll be rooting for him as well, and hoping that helps him out. I'm not getting a dime off the glove. Tony, not Tony, Iceman, John Scully was actually saying, how much do you want out of it? And I was like, really? People actually think you're going to pay them for donating a piece of memorabilia for you to auction off? I would never do that. Never want to put dime off that. If you're going to auction it off for a cause, I want everything to go to the cause. So.
Right.
And if it wasn't
unfortunately, some people aren't like that anymore.
Yeah, if it wasn't for me doing that, it's going to sit in the closet for years, number one, and I'm going to have to wait for Tyson to die to make any serious money off of it. Knock on wood, I don't want to jinx the guy. But, yeah, I'm not looking forward to that. That's kind of a dick move anyway. Oh, yeah, let's wait till the guy dies and then make a shit ton of money. Something he gave me in good faith, So, it's good all around.
When I saw the picture of that glove today, what it reminded me of, now obviously these aren't going to have the significance of a Mike Tyson signature, but tomorrow, January 14th, is going to be 2 years that my friend Hank Cisco had passed away. And when he had, if you ever see the pictures when he came over to my house a couple years ago, he brought these, just like you had the big, giant, oversized gloves, and he was taking pictures, and, he was wearing them, my dad was wearing them, and so when they first brought him over from the hospital, back in 2019, figuring they didn't know how long he was going to last, the doctors were only giving him, a couple days to a couple weeks. He lasted 10 months, because that's the guy he was. But every person that came over to see him, in his deathbed, he wanted a photo with him with the title belt and the big gloves. And that's what we did. We all signed it. In fact, there's one photo where Michael Grant and I are wearing the big gloves, and everybody that came over signed them for him. So, over there, they're like, hey, Tony, will you sign the gloves for Hank? Of course. Tony Tornado, or I might have even just said Tornado on there, which is how it's called. But I was like, that to him, really, really meant something, and I'll have to send you photos of, when he was over my house and we were all wearing the big gloves, and then when Michael Grant and I were wearing, the big gloves. I think you'll appreciate this. Do you remember a Hall of Fame baseball manager by the name of Tommy Lasorda?
Oh, remember I was living in L.A. back in his heyday. Yeah, Tommy, colorful guy.
Very, very. Now, Tommy was a friend of my one uncle's. Now, I never met Tommy Lasorda, but he was a friend of my one uncle's who died when I was 12 years old. Shame of it is, my uncle died from injuries sustained in a house fire. My uncle was a heavy smoker and fell asleep with a cigarette in his hand, and it caught the one couch, and house went up in flames. He had a baseball basically signed by members of the one Los Angeles Dodgers team, which was just destroyed in the fire. So, fast forward years later, like I said, never met Tommy Lasorda. He Norristown, Pennsylvania, through and through. So was Hank Cisco, Norristown, Pennsylvania, through and through. So obviously, these two larger-than-life Norristownians had met many times and gotten many photos together. So last year, it's Tommy Lasorda died on January last year, and the next day, January 8th, is Elvis's birthday. It was a Friday, and I'm in my Elvis jumpsuit at work, praying to God I was going to have his. In a good way, I didn't. So, when Hank was sick, one of the gentlemen that ended up being a pallbearer was an impersonator, and a very good one. And Hank's favorite Elvis song was "How Great Thou Art." And so whenever we would have a gathering at Hank's house to all visit him, this guy, Dean, would sing it for him. And he sang it at the gravesite 2 years ago. So he sang it right. We're at the cemetery, and we're all walking out to how great thou art. So last year, it's Elvis's birthday. I'm dressed in an Elvis jumpsuit, laptop at work. It's Friday afternoon. I'm playing some Elvis music, and it was pretty slow. It was a pretty slow Friday, and I'm chilling a little bit, and my play comes on to How Great Thou Art. And just as it did, work slow, I log on to Facebook. The first picture I saw was smiling, standing with Tommy Lasorda. And I was like, I couldn't tell if it was a sign. And he's like, yo, Rock, still bob, keep bobbing and weaving, or it was just a coincidence. But either way, it's like, sometimes you think it's like, man, there really are. And, so I was thinking about that the other day, and I was telling people, and I was, story, and people saying, you get chills from it.
Yeah. Well, like with my situation, probably the craziest thing was the radio turning on in the middle of the night at a house that I was at, and I had a woman's car who had killed herself, who I had been writing about, and she had this crazy situation where she was on a documentary, and so she had killed herself because her sister was about to sue her, her landlord was about to evict her, basically, and she had nowhere to go, and the doctor was suing her for defamation about, complaining about her plastic surgery operation that she had years ago. So it was a big mess, and I tried to help her as much as possible, but the system was just so fucked up against her. They actually didn't sue me, but they named me in an injunction, so... Anyway, without going too deep into the story, I'm working on a document for her case all night. I go to bed. The fucking stereo system in the living room where nobody is at this time, like 2 o'clock in the morning, goes into full blast. And I always thought it was a Simon and Garfunkel song, but it's not. It's another song. But the line in the song is, I believe that what you say is the undisputed truth. Right? Crazy line to hear after you've just worked on legal documents and you realize nobody is in the room and the radio just came on for that line and shut off. And every ghost story you see has some kind of audio phenomenon, or EVP they call it. Then electronics are often screwed with by ghosts, so I mean, that was probably the freakiest experience I ever had. But it also kind of was like a confirmation. Hey, there's like, even from the world of the great beyond, people care about your work. Like, it's important. I believe that what you say is the undisputed truth, Unbelievable. So, yeah.
We were just, how, things work like that, and, there are signs. And I read this a few months ago, and seeing that event. And I was in my gold tuxedo. In fact, that's my profile picture on Facebook right now, is me in my gold tux, taken at this event. And they said, hey, Tone, can you serve as the MC? Because you were close to Hank, and we feel you will be able to put on. I said, listen, I might be good, he was great. And I said, everything he did came so naturally and without effort. I do the best I can. But, we know you will. So I get up there and kind of told how I met him. And I met him at a fight card. And, and we were, and it was crazy. His bar, about, half hour from where I live now, about maybe 10 minutes from where I grew up. And back in the mid-'90s, I wasn't even 21 yet, but my dad took me there for lunch. And we were looking at some of the boxing memorabilia, and one was from an amateur fight card upstate. Didn't I see, it was either my one college boxing coach's name was on it, or someone he knew was on it. I think his was, but, so I'm like, yeah, I'll do this, and I'll get up there, and I had the crowd, and I was saying how I met him, and how we became friends, and how I said, in a time when I was really down, and life wasn't looking good, work wasn't looking good, everything was like, every time you saw one, the tunnel was an oncoming train, and it didn't look good. I'm getting ready to go to Florida, and I'm not excited about going. And hey, good friend Hank Cisco, man, met me one time, probably doesn't even remember me, but sure, add friend. Oh my God, he accepted that quick. Okay. And then I get a message, hey, I see you guys got a Sinatra night. Do you want to come on my show and promote it? I said, well, it's not my event, but and it's her event, my aunt, well, my pseudo aunt, you know. She's like, well, I need you to come on with me. I said, okay. And I get on there and I bring the gold tuxedo, and they said, you got to. The producers of the show was for like a high school audiovisual, you know. They said, listen, we try to give him a script. He goes off and does whatever he wants. So just good luck and try to keep up. I said,
awesome.
I'm fine with that, you know. This is the guy, the new Rocky Marciano, the new Joe Frazier, new Muhammad Ali. Like, yeah, I can keep up with him. He can keep up with me. And I'm laughing about him. And then we get on there. My aunt's panicking. I don't know what to say. I can't do this. You do all the talking. No. First question, tell me about your organization. You know, Aunt, it's your organization. You got to handle this. So I told that, and then I said how we became so close for years. And I said he would always want me to show up in the Phillies outfit. Always. Yo, Rock, we're having a dinner tonight. Love to. Can you be in the Phillies outfit? Do you know it's January 13th?
Yeah.
It's 10 degrees out. It's 10 degrees out. The are playing for 3 to 4 more months. Rock, I'm going to need you in the Phillies outfit. Okay, I'll be there. And I'd come in. Blue was the outfit because but I would do it. So the weekend, you know, he passes away on a Tuesday. The funeral was going to be on a Friday because they were expecting it, you know. And I get a call, give me a call back. So of course, they're like, what are you going to wear? I said, not the Phillies outfit. I said, I'm wearing a suit. And they're like, okay, that's what we wanted. I said, well, good, because that's what I was doing. And I turned to the Elvis impersonator, and I said, you know, if it was up to him, you'd be dressed as Elvis, I'd be as the Phillies guy right now, you know, in 10-degree weather. So that night, you know, I get home, and, you know, I was really worn down. I was tired, stressed out, you know, emotions were really going a lot. That emotional guy as it is. Call my friend Mike. I'm like, yo, Mike, hey, listen, man, I got to stop over tonight. I got to get out of the house. I said, I want to bring Dominic, you know, it came because, you know, it came late, and I just want to get out of the house, and I want to see the kid and, you know, just kind of just decompress a little bit. He goes, of course, man, we're here for you. The house about, you know, 20-some minutes away. Yeah, man, Mike and his wife, Natalie, how you feeling, man? Yeah, I'm not feeling too good. You know, I feel kind of down, you know, kind of worn out, you know, just down. My phone rings. Collegeville Bakery, local bakery, where the owner will have every event possible. They've had me debut my Phillies outfit there. They've had me come to events there, meet celebrities. Yeah, what are they calling me for? Hey, how you doing? Yeah. What are you doing Sunday? Oh, nothing right now. Would you mind coming to a surprise birthday party for one of these customers that really likes you? It would be my honor. Can you wear the Phillies outfit? I just looked up at the sky and I said, Hank, you got me. I love telling that, you know. And it's coming up, and it kind of makes me smile.
Yeah. I heard an interesting quote. I forget where it was. You know, I watch a lot of the paranormal shows, so it's probably on one of them. But there's like a theory, you know, a lot of people are always talking about, you know, up there in heaven or down there in hell, you know. But I think what is actually the case is the other side, as they call it, could be right next to you. Could be, you know, just basically separated by the breeze in a curtain, you know, as was what the person said. It made me really think, like, you know, yeah, that could totally be true. Like, it's just we can't see it, you know. It makes a lot of sense with, you know, the shadow people and all that stuff and that phenomenon. But, yeah, it's crazy. It's just It's like quantum physics, Shit, you think too deep about, your brain will explode. Yeah, I'm a big spiritual guy. I don't necessarily, preach a religion or, I take from everything. And it comes with the English background where you look at it as everything is a story. There's a different story for the creation of the world from almost every culture. And, what happens after we die and all this other stuff. But I've chosen to not pin myself down to a particular theory of how the world started and how it ends and where we go and all that stuff. But I definitely believe there's a piece of every little story that's true. So it's hard to just say one religion is right and one religion is wrong. Maybe they're all a little bit right.
Aside from turning a Fight News Unlimited show, because granted we don't have a whole lot of events to cover since last week, so it's sometimes good to talk about theology and where little signs come in life. A friend of mine, he wrote a post one time, and I wish he didn't delete his Facebook account, because I would love to find this and read this again, and it was so great. He talks about how every person is a true individual, and he goes, okay, right now the three of us are all doing the exact same thing. We are all, basically talking a fight show. And we're talking, just some other little anecdotes in there and little stories and personal reflections and things like that. But each one of us, in a way, is such an individual person that if somebody, say the show ends when we all hang up the phone and someone asks each one of us our individual reflection on this particular show, each one of us will say something different. And he goes, every memory you ever had is yours. And you take an event, that event to you is unique to you. And your reaction to an event is unique to you. Your memories are unique to you. And he goes, take a great memory of yours. It's a bad memory for somebody else.
Yeah.
One of the greatest nights of my life, February 7th, 1998, I fought Michael Jordan, right? And I won that fight. And it was a great night for me. You ask Michael Jordan what he thinks about it. He's going to say, it sucked.
He got it back
in
the Nationals.
Yeah. He's like, and, or I could take, one of my fights, and I'm like, I have a photo, and it was when I fought Jesse on the second time.
Fuck that guy.
And I thought I won. Yeah, I thought I won.
We should go find him and beat him up today, Tony. Let's do it. For the hell of it.
I thought I won. A lot of my teammates thought I won. A lot of other coaches and other boxers thought I won. Unfortunately, two of the three people that mattered didn't think I won. And they snapped a photo when the decision was being announced. And Tony Wolf was the referee, and he even told me after the fight he disagreed with the decision. And you could see he's got a look on his face. He's like, "No, I don't think the right guy won." I got a very pained look on my face, and Jesse Bonds on his knees in an exalted, reaction. So for me, that's a bad memory. For him, it's a great memory. For me, I think I won. I think whatever. You ask him about it, he's going to say, well, I think I won. See, you're right. I think we do have to do it again.
Yeah, we'll just have a round-robin tournament. You, me, and him. He has to fight us both. At different times.
Okay.
Oh, that guy sucked. He's such a foul artist. Anyway. We do have one more fight to talk about. The Joe Smith Jr. card. That's going on from the Turning Stone Resort and Casino in Verona, New York. Joe Smith Jr. in the main event, 27-3 at light heavyweight, fighting Steve Gerrard, who is 18-2. Let's see. One title fight there, one title on the line. WBO, World Boxing Organization, World Light Heavyweight title. Co-main event is actually very interesting too. William Encarnacion at featherweight. He's only got one loss, 19 wins, facing Abraham Nova, who is 20-0. And boy, this is got a tough name for a heavyweight here. The next fight, Leo Bomeyer Pinchuk. He is 13-2 with one draw. And he's fighting Jose Mario Flores, who is 8-2. And nothing really spectacular on the rest of that one. But here's another main event we're talking about in Pennsylvania. Cheswick, Pennsylvania, at the Pittsburgh Shrine Center. Matt Conway in the main event, 20-2, fighting Avery Sparrow, who is 10-3 at super featherweight. I guess it's not so bad because it's a lower weight.
But he's out of Philadelphia. He's a pretty good fighter.
That's a hell of a name hell of a bad name for a fighter, though, if you're a heavier guy. Oh, yeah, that's a Sparrow. But super featherweight, yeah, I guess you could be called Sparrow. Not have a problem with it. That was for a title, though. International Boxing Association World Super Featherweight title. So, anyway, yeah. That's it for us, I believe. Until next week. Nothing new on the Jake Paul front, really. Talked enough about that last week, but I tried to find some contact information on his manager there to try to, coordinate. No response whatsoever. I might have pissed him off, though, because I kind of insinuated that I might have helped kill a deal that he was trying to help them with when he was working with the Fertittas, because that's the big beef with Dana White is he stopped working for the UFC after the Fertittas got out, and he went exclusively to work with the Fertittas in a company called Fertitta Capital, which I really haven't heard anything about since, but I believe their big play was to try to get a football team, and they wanted the Raiders, and so I came along. The Raiders hired a private investigative firm to look into their history, and that guy spent like a week on the phone with me. I mean, not every day, all day, but I mean, half hour here, an hour there. Like, we talked a lot, and I sent him a shitload of information. And I never was able to get a straight answer about what it was all for, but his agency was in Los Angeles. You don't have to put two and two together that hard to figure out it was probably the Raiders, because the Raiders were coming to Vegas anyway, and I know that Station Casino's people had something to do with the building of the stadium. I confirmed that. I never really wrote too much about it, but I know that they had some interest in at least the venue where the stadium was built and then the construction of it. But they never were able to get into the ownership picture, because I don't think the guy wanted to sell anyway at the time when they were moving. He wanted to see how it was going to go and then build it up and then sell it. But also, if he was going to sell it at that time and do that move, he was going to have some real big ownership people. And the NFL, with all the politics and microscope on them, you can't have an owner with any ties to organized crime whatsoever. This is a no-go. I mean, I'm amazed that they can still run their casinos with some of the shit in their background. But anyway, that's another story. But it's just crazy, It's I was able to kind of ruin that opportunity for them, just like they ruined the opportunities for all the investors in science. So, big time karma moment there. But anyway, we're looking forward to this new year. We're going to be seeing a lot of interesting matchups, and we'll definitely be trying to fill some slots with some guests in the next couple weeks, and John Scully is going to hopefully be one of them. We're not gonna do any kind of hint, get him when we get John Scully on the show. We're definitely gonna have to do like a psychic reading thing on him though, and like really freak him out, because he loves like criticizing all that stuff and saying it's not real. I think we can fool him based on what I know about him. Like, oh, we gotta do a reading for you, John, and then just start shooting out like shit that he would never know we knew. He's funny. He said he put on a post today. He got a phone call from a guy doing one of them scams, and the guy says, "So, he's got a thick Arabic accent," and then he tries to tell John his name is Mark, and John just starts laughing.
Yeah.
So the guy called him a motherfucker and hung up.
Yeah, I normally, I've only ever had one or two people really curse at me. Like, one guy calls up the one time, and I always go through my different personas. Usually my favorite is the Joe Pesci one. And I'll say, my name is Vincent LaGuardia Gambini. I'm from Brooklyn. And then if it's the car warranty, I own the 1964 Buick Skyline convertible. If I get other calls, I'll ask the agent and say, law offices of Vincent LaGuardia Gambini and Associates, how may I help you? So this guy gets on the phone, and you know he's going to scam you, right? And so the first was like, law offices of Vincent LaGuardia Gambini and Associates, what can I do for you? Better yet, what can you do for me? And and that's actually lines from two different movies with Joe Pesci. One being obviously My Cousin Vinny, and the other one was a character in a Rodney Dangerfield movie called Easy Money, which is one of my favorite movies ever. And when Rodney Dangerfield gets the money at the end, Joe Pesci's like, "Oh yeah, no, I'm his business advisor. What can I do for you? Better yet, what can you do for me?" And they're like, he's like, "What? Silver's down? Oh, call the Lone Ranger. He'll cheer him up." And then the one person hung up on me because I wanted to say, "Funny? How am I funny? What am I, a clown to you? What am I here for your amusement?" I was going to move 3 in the one call. So this guy goes to me, he's like, whatever. So the first thing he says to me, he's like, "What the fuck you say to me?" I'm like, "What?" I said, "I'm telling you my name, Vincent LaGuardia Gambini. New York." He's like, "Oh." And he's like, and then he's like, I'm like, "Yeah, well, what can I do for you? Better yet, what can you do for me?" And he's like, well, something. I said, no. That was a different one. The one time I was Al Bundy, Chicago, Illinois, Polk High, 4 touchdowns in one game.
I like that one. I remember that one. That was good.
And then the guy was like,
guy wouldn't let you finish.
And the guy's like, "Wait, you're from Chicago?" He goes, "I'm calling Pennsylvania." I said, "Well," and he goes, "Whatever." And he's like arguing with me, right? And I'm like, "I moved to Chicago. I still have my old cell phone number." He's like, "Oh yeah, really?" And so now he's arguing with me, but I'm wasting his time. So he can't be calling him and other people. And I'm like, "Yeah, no." I said, "I'm Chicago, Illinois. 4 touchdowns in one game." Well, I said, "Well, it's pretty good, except my Bears lost yesterday." "Bears, what is that?" I'm like, "Oh, it's a football game." "Are you talking about American football?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm a big Bears fan." "Oh, sucks." I said, "What?" He's like, I like real football." I said, "Well, what's that?" He's like, "Soccer." I said, "That's the shittiest sport of all time." Now we get into an argument on football versus soccer for like 10 minutes. I'm like, at the same time, I was wasting so much of his time that he could not be calling other people.
Yeah, I think there's a market for a new Jerky Boys tape, like with to new people, doing new things. That would be a good gag to just like do the worst rips of, telemarketers.
You know what? You really have a couple of mine, that I recorded, and
I remember the Al Bundy one when the guy cut you off and figured it out and hung up on you, but that was funny still because he was like, "All right."
Yeah. And then the one time I would be like, the person don't want, like, they hung right up on me, like, "Yeah, I guess I don't want to hear about it." That's when I had my 1971 Dodge. When my friend Natalie, she was talking. I was talking to her the one time I was over the house, and she goes, "My favorite part of these videos is your facial expression. You're like serious, and you're listening to him so intently." I had a guy hang up on me yesterday because the car warranty ones. Like I always different, and then if I can't think of anything on the fly, I just go back to the Skylark, the Joe Pesci one. But the They go, we sent you something in the mail, and we haven't gotten a response yet. So I go, oh, you sent me something in the mail? I said, can you give me the address you sent it to? And they're like, click. Because it's bullshit, you know?
Yeah. I get more emails than calls now, but, you know, it's mostly like they're trying to get you to think that either PayPal or Yahoo, and you have to reset your password. And you can tell, like, but the craziest thing to me is it may not be even a scam, but I get these emails from people that are talking about my website. And they're sending me emails from a Gmail account. And they're talking about how they can do these apps and these website work for you and do all these magical things to make you sell more product. And, like, I'm like, first of all, you're sending this message from a Gmail account instead of a website email. So you don't have your own website.
Right.
That is painfully obvious. Second of all, it's like, okay, you know, you're trying to tell me about my website. You don't even know what my website is because I don't sell anything.
Right.
So how are you going to improve my sales?
Right.
But yeah, there's a lot of those people.
A friend of mine actually, he works for a company, and part of his position is cybersecurity. And so we were talking one day, and he was saying, like, you get a lot of times you get these calls and they say that they're calling from Amazon because there's a unusual activity on your Amazon that you ordered,
that's how they get
7 iPhone 13s for like, you know, and you're being charged like $11,000 or whatever. So the one time, see, with his job, he does a lot of purchasing through different websites. So he gets this call, and he's like, this could be legitimate because I do a lot of purchasing for me. And he's like, so he's talking to the person, and he's like, realizing that the person's bullshitting him. So he's egging him on because he's a ball buster like me. He's egging him on. And then he's like, I'm just going to tell you something right now. Before you say one more word, he goes, I want you to let you know, I am the head of cybersecurity at like a several $billion firm. So choose your words wisely because you're being recorded, and you know and this can be investigated. Now, was he bullshitting there? Probably, but the person just completely just shit right there and just boom, hung up. I've used that on the Amazon. I had one woman calls me from Amazon, and we noticed fraudulent on your, you know, Amazon, like 10 iPhone 13s, and you're being charged $1,000 or whatever, $10,000 or whatever it was. So I was like, oh, okay, yep. Now I know it's bullshit because they called on the house phone. My Amazon is not linked to the house phone; it's linked to my cell phone. So I put it. So I click on it, and I guess definitely want to talk to somebody. Yeah, boom. Yeah, okay, yeah. Tell me what you got. Okay, well, the first thing it says, thank you. How may I help you? I said, well, I don't know. You called me. So, and then they're like, well, you got to give us your information. Well, I said, but you called me. Well, we noticed fraudulent on your account. I said, right. What's the account name? Well, we can't give you that. Why not? You called me. They said, we're doing you a favor. I said, oh, are you? I said, you know, yeah, we're doing you a favor. I said, well, we're trying. I said, how? You don't even know what my name is. Well, we do know what your name is, but we can't say it because. And then I'm like, you are such a fucking liar, you know? And then I ended up messing with them so long. The woman was so mad at me. I thought she was going to end the call and kill herself, which would have been a good thing. So I know a lot of the people. I have them just all. It depends on what mood I'm in and what tangent I will take them.
Awesome.
And then, like I said, then I get hung up on, and I enjoy that.
All right. Well, we're going to wrap it up for tonight, and I'm going to try to get a good guest for next week.
Well, gentlemen, it's always a pleasure.
John Cameron's been asking. He asked me today, but I didn't want to set it up at last notice.
You know where?
We'll figure it out.
All right, guys. Enjoy the fights.
There you go.